With the finance bill having been approved by Lok Sabha, of course, Rajya Sabha will be a mere formality, and then of course the President's consent. What is the next step in this case? When do you raise demand? Are you going to seek a legal opinion from the highest lawmakers in this, law officers in this country? Could you share with us what does the Revenue Department of Finance Ministry do next with Vodafone?
I think you are jumping the gun a little bit. It has been passed, of course, by the Lok Sabha. It needs to be considered and passed by the Rajya Sabha. Presidential assent needs to be obtained. After the presidential assent is obtained, yes, the validation clause in the bill would validate all demands and orders which have been impacted vis-a-vis these particular provisions.
Right.
Consequently, the demand which has been raised against Vodafone and similar cases would be valid. So the tax amount, interest amount may need to be recomputed to make it up to date, and the penalty amount for which a separate order has been passed would be validated. Once it is validated, it's only an issue of issuing them a show cause notice for recovering the amount.
Will you look at waiving of penalty at this stage?
There is no question of the government waiving any penalty. There is an assessment order. There is a penalty order. Now if Parliament approves in terms of a retrospective clarificatory amendment and says that it was always their intention, and then with the validation clause validates the orders, where does the question arise of the government giving up something which is then approved by Parliament?
Fair enough, but have you got any indication from Vodafone, and I'm preempting you here to speak what you've been perhaps parlances that you've been having behind closed doors, have you got any indication from Vodafone whatsoever that if you waive off the penalty, they will perhaps look at withdrawing the whole arbitration threat and will perhaps pay the rest? And that could perhaps be one of the negotiating points at all. Because nobody likes litigation, neither the government of India nor does Vodafone.
No, there is no question. As I said, if Parliament clarifies its legislative intent and validates, there is no question of the government then sitting and negotiating with any party. And it's not just a question of Vodafone. There are other cases also which are similarly impacted. I don't think it is for government to sit across and negotiate on an issue. Either tax is payable or it is not payable. If it is payable and it has been validated by Parliament, then the parties have to pay as per what has been validated.
A lot of people across the world within India are very jittery about the fact that this retrospective tax legislation is going to come. While it's a legitimate right on your part to perhaps seek what is due to you, but the fact is that you will perhaps be making a whole lot of stakeholders jittery.
I think this is absolutely wrong. There is no question of stakeholders becoming jittery. Let me go back to the original.
And just before you start talking about this, sir, because the fear is that this will vitiate the investment climate in the country, which perhaps is not at its best even as we speak. And that is perhaps a concern that a lot of people have raised, and which is why the question.
As I said, go back to the basics.
Right.
This does not impact any Indian domestic investor or industrialist. So any Indian investor or industrialist has no reason at all to speak for a foreign company which on sale of an asset in India has made capital gains and doesn't want to pay tax. This is not to say for Vodafone, because that is really of Hutchison. But yes, Vodafone had to withhold the tax. So for any Indian investor or Indian industrialist, there should be no question at all. Unless any one of them is doing a similar thing in some other countries or doing some round tripping.
Sure.
If that is so, then of course they may have a concern. Second, for foreign genuine entrepreneurs, investors, there is no question. What has been mentioned? The retrospective amendments do not override any double taxation avoidance agreement.
Yes.
We have 82 DTAs. Anyone coming through a DTA is covered by the DTA.
Sure enough.
So there is no issue of any of those genuine investors. But yes, if the investor is coming through a tax haven where we don't have a DTA, he ought to be worried. If he is wanting that he doesn't pay tax after selling off a business in India, and he doesn't pay tax even in his own country,
that's perhaps not on.
It is just not on.
Do you think at one level India Inc. has perhaps been crying foul for wrong reasons?
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind.
Haven't you told them that in many meetings?
I have.
Exactly what?
I have told them that if you have a concern, you must list out that concern. You cannot just say in thin air that this is going to vitiate investment climate. I said, if any Indian industrialist has an issue, please tell us what is your concern.
You know, when the TRAI came out with its recommendations and some of us was present there, it was really very revenue accretive. The only person who came to my mind was you, and it was for an obvious reason. While the recommendations are very revenue accretive, they do talk about revenue maximization from airwaves, something that hasn't been done before. The fact, sir, also is that this is very, very steep, that this will destabilize the business models of a lot of telecom companies. Don't you fear that as well? Because, you know, robust telcos are as important as revenue maximization at one level.
No, it's not my position to comment on that, but let me just say that TRAI recommendations are examined first in the Department of Telecom, referred to Telecom Commission. They have referred back with some queries. Telecom Commission is to again re-examine, then they would send their recommendations to the department, and thereafter the matter would be put before the empowered group of ministers.
Sure enough, yes.
So let's not jump to any conclusion as to what will be the final decision of government.
Telecom recommendations, TRAI's recommendations will swell your kitty. You're not willing to share a figure with us at this time.
What is the final decision of government? You yourself mentioned that there are issues in terms of the price at which the ultimate service is available.
That's right.
To the public. Those issues are also to be kept in mind. They will be taken into account by Telecom Commission. They have to keep in mind what Supreme Court has said, what TRAI recommendation is. Telecom Communication would give its recommendation. The Department of Telecom would examine, and then the empowered group would take a holistic view, taking into account all these aspects.
You know, while some of what the telecom operators are saying is perhaps a part of very tough posturing, but the fact also is, and business reality is such, if you just pick up the way business is done in India for telecom operators, tariffs will rise. Maybe they will not go up by 100%, but tariffs will rise. We've seen a regime of rock bottom tariffs. Which is why I'm asking you this question. I'm asking the capacity of somebody who understands finances very well, sir. That don't you believe at one stage we risk tariffs going up? And do you also not believe that some of the concerns that they have raised, I'm not saying all because this is, like I said, tough posturing, but some of the concerns that they have raised are perhaps a little genuine?
Clearly the issue that the earlier policy to provide lower tariffs and also take the tele-density into the rural areas at a low level has been a policy which has been followed so far.
Yes.
Now, in the light of what the Supreme Court has said and its implications, what you are saying, the concerns they are raising in terms of raising of tariffs, etc., obviously it is not that there is no basis for what they are saying. However, as I said, let these issues be deliberated by the proper forum.
But one level you agree with me?
It's not fair for me to say anything when you have expert forums who are to look into this matter and take a final view.
You will be a huge stakeholder there because the revenue comes to you. But I'm going to ask you just one question. Answer me in yes or no. It's very difficult to get a bureaucrat to say what you want them to. They will eventually say what they want. But let me make a try. Do you agree with me that at one level the concerns are justified? Yes or no?
It's not my position to say this. It is still for expert bodies to examine. not my position.
Fair enough, I appreciate that. The Finance Minister, in his remarks yesterday, and I thought he made a very powerful speech, spoke a lot about the mounting subsidy burden in the country. He spoke about oil subsidies. He said that's not sustainable. The fact is that at one stage the government will have to look at rationalizing oil prices, be it petrol, which has been deregulated but still being sold at a subsidized level, or be it diesel. Do you expect prices to be tweaked or prices to be rationalized after the budget session is over?
No, FM has been very emphatic on that there are certain actions which can be taken in the budget, but other actions have to be taken outside the budget. Therefore, in his speech yesterday also in Lok Sabha, he was very emphatic in saying that there needs to be greater political consensus on such issues. He did point out that 1,39,000 crores is the under-recoveries of the oil marketing companies, which cannot be borne by them. Consequently, what he said was that across the political spectrum, there needs to be consensus in terms of certain actions to be taken for pricing or otherwise for the areas pertaining to diesel, for LPG and kerosene.
No, absolutely.
Now, clearly, action will be initiated once the budget is out of the way.
Can I ask you a question very honestly? Oil marketing companies have in their various representations to you raised the issue that petrol is a deregulated commodity. Ideally, it should be linked to market prices, something that is not happening right now. And on account of that, they have a subsidy portion. They have written to you asking for a reimbursement there. Will you let go of that money? Will you reimburse that?
That's a matter between the oil marketing companies and their ministry. There is nothing from the finance ministry where they have been stopped from increasing prices. And petrol is deregulated and they need to increase the prices depending upon the international prices.
I wish life was so simple, and I wish it was just pure economics that was at play and not politics. Thanks very much for talking to us, sir. Always pleasure to talk to a man who understands finances and puts everything in perspective. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.